Do you really know what's going on around you? I'm Bob from World 5 List, and from the highest paid public employees to all of your favorite pizza places, I'm going to show you 10 maps that are going to change the way you see the United States. Number 10. The highest paid public employees. Now, I really think I might have stumbled into the wrong line of work after checking out this map. Who do you think the highest paid public employee is? Well, teachers? No. Go ahead and guess again. And if you guessed that it was a coach, you might have hit the nail on the head. There were only 10 states out of 50 where a profession other than a coach made more money, which is kind of unbelievable, really. But don't fret, your hard-earned tax dollars probably aren't going to these coaches' paychecks because the bulk of the coaching money, especially for American football, is paid out of the revenue that the teams generate. Most of these coaches aren't going to show up in a salary database, and if they do, they won't raise any red flags because they're only expected to provide their base income. This is the salary they earn from the state. The Alabama football coach, Nick Saban, earns an astounding $7.1 million. Oh, and did I mention his $3 million mortgage was paid off by boosters, and he can get almost $700,000 a year in bonuses? I should have listened to my father and been a football coach. But you know what they say, if you can't play, you can't coach. Number 9, the obesity rate. Now, me, like the rest of the planet, enjoys a good burger and side of fries. It's the American way. But this map didn't quite turn out to be as shocking as I hoped it would be. Practically every state has at least 20% of its population suffering from obesity. And if we're looking at regional, the South had the highest rate with 32% of adults. Age also plays a major factor in obesity rates, where young adults are half as likely to have obesity as middle-aged adults. And sure, they have a better metabolism, but we're not sure that's the only reason they aren't suffering. The highest prevalence comes from adults who are 45 to 54 years old. The age and time thing, well, may just play a factor since middle-aged adults have less time to exercise and eat a healthier diet and cook their own meals. Number 8. The United States incarceration rate. But first, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell because you don't want to miss out on any of my latest videos. Now, America's definitely a leader, but not always in a good way, because unfortunately for us, it's the amount of people who are incarcerated. Think about this fact. 2.4 million people live behind bars in the United States, and that's the highest rate in the world. The most disconcerting thing about this map is that not even Russia is in our league, and they come the closest. The post-Soviet Union country, known for locking people up and throwing away the key, has less people in prison than we do. In fact, the United States makes up 4% of the world's population, but accounts for 22% of the world's prison population. Authoritarian nations like Cuba and China have less people in prison, and sure, China does force people to be evicted from their homes and punishes them with death, and we can't forget to take that into account. However, the United States keeps prisoners in jail for longer periods of time than any other country. The numbers of incarcerations have soared since the 1980s when law enforcement cracked down on drug offenders to decrease the rates of addiction and drug use, and this war on drugs has failed, resulting in overcrowded prisons. Number 7. Paid maternal leave. Now, the United States is really kind of behind the rest of the world when it comes to paid maternity leave. Plenty of first world countries are giving their employees multiple weeks of paid time off when they have their babies, so why does the United States fall short? And why are they the only industrialized nation in the world not to offer paid maternity and paternity leave for parents of newborns? For a country that wants to claim family is of the utmost importance, it sure doesn't feel that way when looking at data like this. In fact, Australia passed a maternity leave law guaranteeing parents 18 weeks of leave at the federal minimum wage in 2010. Before that, it was just Australia and the US as first world countries who didn't offer it. And now it's been 8 years and we're still the only one. If you're considering raising a family in America, well, good luck, because your company isn't about to front the bill on that end, and you're not going to get much financial support to do so. Number 6, livestock in America. Now, if there's one thing we do know a lot about in the US, it's agriculture. But we seem to be specifically interested in cows. They basically cover the entire country as far as agricultural animals go, and the only place they seem to be missing from are the barren deserts of the Southwest and the remote mountains. Pigs and chickens are more popular east of Colorado, with pigs being gathered in the north and chickens in the south. And we can't forget about that big blue blob right in the center of Texas where most of our sheep and goats are located. It definitely makes me think about where all the livestock comes from and what percentage is made up of cows. Now, is anyone craving a cheeseburger? Number 5, pizza place geography. Fans of pizza can rejoice when they see this map, but before you get too excited, it isn't data for your favorite local pizza place. This map shows which pizza chain is the nearest within a 10-mile radius across the entire United States, and it looks like there's a lot of red flooding the map for Pizza Hut. The map looks more like an ode to my favorite pepperoni than one that shows pizza chains, and talking about pizzas now making me really hungry at 6 o'clock in the morning. Domino's seems to be faring pretty well on the map, and it also seems to have a pretty regional division with Papa Murphy's dominating the western states of Washington, Oregon, and California. And poor Chuck E. Cheese, do we even consider that to be real pizza, is almost impossible to find. What has this turned into? I mean, where's Waldo? More like, where's my childhood? But perhaps the real question that we've all wanted to know the answer to, and be fair when you debate about this, do you like pineapple on your pizza? Does it belong there? Let me know all about it in the comments below. Number 4, fast food restaurant geography. Now, as demonstrated in about half the points I've been making, Americans really love food. It's not like it's some kind of international secret that we're keeping locked away in Area 51. We still think the Whataburger ingredients are hidden somewhere in there. And honestly, if someone were to take away our food, there'd probably be a serious catastrophe bigger than World War III. This map is called Stephen Von Worley's Beef Space and shows a country full of fast food opportunity. Each popular restaurant has its own color, and the map also demonstrates how regional chain restaurants affect that certain area. The South being dominated by purple for Sonic, and the dot sizes are represented to show where the population is most likely to spend their cash. Looking like Dairy Queen is a fairly popular one in the north and around Texas, and Jack in the Box is a popular choice in the west. Burger King, McDonald's, and Wendy's can be found all over the country. So, does anyone want a side of fries with that? I definitely need some French fries to go with those golden arches right now. Number 3, the top beer by state. I'm not afraid to say that Americans like to have a good time every now and again, so this map probably explains America in the best way possible. If you come here, choose one of these beers and you probably won't be judged. The non-scientific map has been created from 5,000 plus surveyed Americans, showing which beers are the favorites among states, and the choices ranged from Yuengling to Blue Moon. California decided to be original, going with Corona, no judgment here. And we also have to keep in mind that just because these people voted for these beers as their favorite doesn't necessarily mean it's the one they drink all the time, because let's face it, not everyone can live on a craft beer budget. That's when we break out the stuff on this map, which is basically flavored water. Number 2, states with the most Starbucks. Now, is it any wonder why the United States loves coffee? We're one of the biggest consumers of the delicious beverage and import more than $4 billion worth of it every year. Maybe that's because all we do is work and we don't get any parental leave. Let's take a look at how addicted we really are. Each of these states represents how many Starbucks stores there are per capita. So that means the darker the green, the more Starbucks there are. Americans consume 400 million cups of coffee per day, which is about 146 billion cups each year. Now, it also makes sense that states with larger populations have more Starbucks stores, and the West predominantly reigns when it comes to having a good supply of it because it was found in Seattle to begin with, and its headquarters remain there. Seattle actually has 10 times more coffee stores per 100,000 residents than the United States has overall, which really makes me want to go back to Seattle again. Number 1. Drug overdoses. Now, these maps are almost a decade apart, but they look like they're looking at data from two completely different topics. Drug overdose is the number one killer of Americans today. Overdoses, in fact, kill more Americans than car crashes or guns, and the crisis of it hasn't even reached its peak, according to experts. What was once contained to a small localized problem in certain regions has now ended up taking over the entire nation. In 2014, 47,000 people in the United States would die from drug overdoses, equaling out to 130 deaths per day. 29,000 of those being directly caused by opioids. The roots of the problem begin in places like Central Appalachia, where heavy labor was expected as part of a daily routine. These areas are places where coal miners, agriculture, and cutting timber would cause workers immense physical pain, so then they're prescribed opioids as a relief, but quickly became dependent on them. And that epidemic rears its ugly head in the form of heroin. This map, although disheartening for the United States, is also quite eye-opening. Thanks for watching. Which of these maps was most shocking to you? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time on World 5.